We had spent a couple of years looking for a small space to do our brewery, and we knew that this undeveloped parcel was back here. And Jeff referred to the fact that a circle is the most efficient use of space and the most efficient to heat and cool. I think Jeff said, all right, so you guys don't like squares and you don't like rectangles and you want a prefab. Grain bin? And it just kind of fell out like a question, but everyone in that moment went, oh my God, that's it? Yeah.
This is the grain belt, you know. Minneapolis is the mill city, and grain bins are where you store that stuff. Look, we live in the Midwest, and grain bins are all over the place. And so I don't think anybody who lives here hasn't looked at one of those grain bins and thought, I bet those are pretty cool inside. I wonder what we could build inside one of those. Guys who put up grain bins, you know, they're used to putting stuff together with nuts and bolts. It's a pile of panels and a bunch of nuts and bolts, and you know, it goes up in rings basically. They build the top first, and then you keep adding rings until the roof ends up being there, and you sort of jack the whole grain bin up as you go and you fill in down below. And so you can build these ginormous structures with only a couple guys and a couple of these specialized, essentially car jacks. So when you get it done, as a grain bin, it's very structurally supporting because they've engineered this to just, you know, very close tolerances. So you can see on the outside the panels that make up this whole thing. So they're all exactly the same size, and they all bolt together. So you got guys on the outside and guys on the inside, you know, with two, you know, a drill and then a wrench or whatever it is, and they're basically just working together to crank these things together. And then the windows are sized exactly to fit in the middle of that panel. We actually literally laid out the panels and laid out the windows, you know, in 3D and sort of played with them to make sure that that's the way that made sense to do them. And then what we did is we came out to the bin, we just put big blue X's on the panels that we wanted to put windows in, which is like really low tech, but you usually can't do that. It's like, I want a window here, but you have to plan ahead. In this case, we just go here, here, you know, so we knew the number of windows, but it was nice to be able to adjust right or left a little bit. We're in an industrial zone over here, and so in order to put a brewery anywhere, you have to still put them in industrial zones, and so there's not that many areas where you can do that. And until only a couple years ago, the city treated breweries the same way it did container buildings, which is, they're gonna ruin everything, right? And so that's why it's here on the edge of the industry. So zoning put it here. Now that said, you still want to create a reason for people to come and visit. And so part of the reason to make this in a grain bin is to make a there.
Throughout the design and build process, it felt like, oh, that's too small. And then you'd walk in and go, no, this is going to be just right. Hey, it's actually kind of big. It's kind of funny. People who haven't been here before will walk through this door, and literally the standard move is to walk in and then the head just goes back up. They just follow the line up right away, and I think it's because it's surprising how spacious it feels once you come inside. Because from the outside, it's a tiny building.
And they're grain bins, right? I mean, you put grain in them. You fill them from the top, and it fills up, and then you take the grain out the bottom, and that's what they are.
So typically there is a lid There's a large lid that lives over it, and that's the chute that the grain would typically feed through. So instead of putting the lid on this, literally, we left it open. So figuratively and idealistically, all things are possible.
To me, it looks like almost like the Pantheon in Rome. It's almost, it could be mystical.
You're exactly right. This does look like the Pantheon, and we sort of like this thing from the outside. The Pantheon, really it's all gods. And so in a way, this is a symbol, sort of almost, there's a certain amount of sort of worshiping the grain. It's used to hold grain. Now we're making, beer out of that stuff. To see the people that come for literally pilgrimages to have an authentic experience with people who are doing it for something other than a commercial enterprise is a sort of a quasi-religious kind of thing.
We're surrounded in the Midwest by a proliferation of grain bins. And for us, the idea of that visual tie back to the farm really resonated with Jay and I. We're brewing all organic. A big part of why we do that is land stewardship and farm worker health. And to be able to see it and be in it was a pretty cool thing. The reflective quality of the interior walls, the windows being all the way around, it's like being in the middle of a sundial. The light moves all day long, so it's really dynamic, and the ambient light is fantastic.
The nice thing about using something that's prefabricated is this whole grain bin costs like, say, $50,000. And it's like, oh great, I don't need to do any structural engineering. Well, except for you do need to do some structural engineering. And so once you add this door, and once you add those windows, it's not insulated, so you have to insulate it. So what you see here is a second layer of just corrugated steel which wraps it. But the cool thing is, because it's a pre-engineered product and it's already round, we don't have to make this thing round. If you were doing something else that wasn't going to be completely round, it wouldn't make sense. And if we were going to build something up from scratch being round, it wouldn't make sense.
So it is 1,300 square feet. It's a small space, but it's insanely efficient. Literally now, the tour of brewing in our brewery, you can walk in the space, turn in a circle, and complete the tour. Our grain comes in, and we keep a really low inventory. We receive shipments maybe a little bit more often. We have dunnage racks and a mobile malt room, so our malt will roll out of the way. We mill right here. This flexible auger takes the crushed grain up into our grist case. We're brewing on a 10-barrel system. Each batch that we brew will then knock out into a conical, and primary fermentation happens here. In addition to using all organic ingredients, we don't use any finings or mechanical filtering for our beer. So time and temperature is our thing. We refer to slow food movement, and we're kind of slow beer. So it literally just follows the circle the whole way around. This cold room is behind this wall. And from there, it comes out of the cold room and just rolls out the front door when we're delivering. And then the garage door is kind of a daily event. So that's up and down, if kegs are going out or deliveries of malt are rolling in. When weather and seasons require the door to be open, but we don't want to deal with Minnesota bugs, we have an inset screen that stays very much out of the way, which is pretty slick. As far as making use of 1,300 square feet to make a commercial brewery viable, we have to be really efficient with how we use the space. So we have a good friend who is a genius at furniture design. We went to him and we said, we're doing a brewery and we need a bar, but it has to be on wheels, and it needs to be a production table, and it needs to offer storage. and be really thoughtful. And he was just like, what? I got that. The whole thing is beautiful glidey casters that we have locked down right now. But this thing, our side, is the business side. So we have 7 kit drawers that are fully removable with finger holes on either side. We also have tool cribs, which double as our cash drawer during taproom, and then continue in these drawers from safety glasses and brewing notes to our CSA pickup book to, packaging materials. Go on down the line. But the other side is bar. So it accommodates 7 bar stools. Our kind of bin motto is if it's not on wheels, it needs to stack. This one lives when we're in taproom mode right in front of the bar. So we'd roll it over and then put the bar stools in front of it. When we're in the midst of a brew day, the table rolls forward. The center of the space is the workhorse, and it's either functioning as our tap room and set up for guests. It's everything to the side, great access to our triple sinks on a brew day, or doing packaging, living out here so that we can roll kegs out for delivery to our bar and tap accounts. Upstairs is a loft. It's dry storage and a small office. We store firewood in here. You can see it doubles as our reading material during tap room, so it's also a library. And we kind of overlap things a little bit. Our office, which is tiny, is also on wheels, and everything else is stackable. At least 80% of that wall is repurposed from a neighbor's fence. And then the blonde pieces, the unfinished ones, are primarily from crates that our equipment was shipped on. In a nod to our surrounding environment, which is a lot of industry and 18-wheel trucks. In this bathroom, we use truck side mirrors and a loading dock mirror. The loading dock mirror is a little bit funhouse and kind of funny. This guy is here as a ride-along just so there is actually a flat mirror if somebody is wanting to use a normal mirror. And this one lives here as a shelf. So again, we took a mirror and repurposed its use as a shelf so that you can rest your beer, since we're often standing room only. You have a proper place to put it, while you're using the restroom. And then in this small closet is our water filtration and the manifold for the radiant heat system. The deck is all repurposed from the Mill City Road in Minneapolis. And after years of people driving over it, the boards kind of rattled loose. And when they pulled it out, we went, wait a second, because we had been commuting over that road for years and loved the charm of that road. So now we get to commute over it again, but to a different place. Our parcel is 1/6 of an acre, so we have 9,600 square feet to work within. Jeff, knowing that we were coming into this just with 2 people and no investors and had been planning for years to make it happen, said, let's just focus on the building and we'll keep our landscape really simple. And we loved that. We thought, we'll do a barley field and we'll be able to talk about soil health. So we had a soil test done and showed that the ground was just very depleted. That first year, our barley field, right after it had germinated, there was a big storm and the rainwater just kind of rolled most of that germinated barley into the street. And we realized that we get all the rain runoff because everything else around us isn't permeable. So we said, all right, we have an opportunity here and we still want to keep a monoculture, but we need to do something other than tilling and farming this land. So what we ended up doing was surrounding the parcel with rain gardens. So they literally form a horseshoe all the way around the edge. And between the two, because we did it in 2 phases, it's expected that they'll sink at least 200,000 gallons of water a year on one very tiny parcel. And because we were going to dedicate so much space and effort into rain garden on a very tiny parcel, Jeff had an idea of what we could do for our beer garden. So this design we love. It's not only another prefab, repurposed material into a completely different application, but the fact that you can sit in this space and see what the garden is doing. He left a split down the center and suspended a gutter. So you can watch the water collect in the gutter, roll back, and then drip into the rain garden that's going to do the work of sinking this water and taking the pressure off of our storm water sewer systems. So this depleted parcel is now really starting to thrive. In 2 more years, we should see a completely filled in prairie space. And it stands apart from our industrial surroundings in a way that is pretty fantastic. When Jeff designed the pavilion, we knew we wanted to do a fire pit as well. We were lucky enough to find some cobblestones that had been pulled out of University Avenue when they put in the light rail line. So it's still part of the neighborhood, yet just used in a slightly different way. The other geeky thing about this pavilion, it ties back to the name of our brewery, Bang. Jay used to be a software engineer, and in Unix code, an exclamation point is referred to as a bang. That became the name, it became the logo, and in our geekiness, whenever Google Earth rolls back over this space, from its view, the garden looks like a bang. We love it. In the first couple of years that Jay and I were open, we were both still doing our day gigs when we opened the doors. Just doing a soft transition into making this thing happen. So we were working like triple time in those days. Once we were both here full on, we said, okay, now we need to start saying yes to the requests that we're getting for special events. But for special events, you need tables, and we had been rolling just with stackable chairs and short ones that doubled as stools or tables. So we went back to the same friend who designed this bar for us and said, we need 5 tables for the space. Think cocktail tables and think Russian nesting dolls. And literally, he came back with genius. So we have 5 tables that nest and stack into the footprint of 1 when not in use. And he mastered that design by using different diameter pipe for the table bases. So the 2 short tables slide over the outside. The 3 tall tables have different diameters that sleeve over each other. And then you screw one of the tables back on top and stack the rest on like pancakes, which is just absolutely genius. We've managed to keep everything on wheels or stackable so we can go in between functions. So it feels and looks like a grain bin inside, because it is. The only genius behind it's not a piece of farm equipment is it is a piece of farm equipment. But it's custom design. So double walled, radiant heat in the floor. It allows us to be Minnesota like through and through. In the winter, it goes back to this really cozy kind of standing room only thing when we're open for taproom. So it changes with the seasons. It's incredible. People come through the taproom and just love the space so much that they start ideating about this could be an awesome home. It's like a loft on the ground, but in a different way.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a love of the industrial kind of space, and whether that happens to be a grain bin or this sort of barn type thing, you know, or a warehouse that's already there. I mean, all these things are tied into a desire to be something that we're not and inhabit something that is sort of another part of what we're used to. So it's a romantic notion, just like inhabiting a tiny house. I mean, there's no one who doesn't think tiny houses are really cool. Are you really going to live in a tiny house? Most people know, but that doesn't mean you can't inhabit the idea for a little while.